Michael Stone. We thought it was Michael Stone. As I've told you too many times, we bored out your skull listening to this, but since the Union Bears, when we eventually got back into Ibrox this season, the Union Bears moved from the Brimlin up to the Copeland end. Where I sit in the main stand, it's right up towards the Copeland end. So I'm kind of side on with a lot of the tifos. I can't make them out properly. I can't kind of get the full panorama of the Copeland Road stand tifos. So we're all starting like, that's definitely a person. That's some sort of person. That's flesh, isn't it? Is that a gun? And it started. It's Michael Stone. It's Michael Stone. Oh my God, that is totally. So we actually think, the picture of Souness with the shotgun, the classic picture of Souness with the old Italian shotgun there. See, in The Sopranos, so that's the present that Tony gets for his father-in-law, isn't it? It's a classic. Is it a Beretta shotgun or something like that? Something really special. Anyway, I'm like, that's a great tifo. But we were actually thinking it was a bit weak ass because we told ourselves that's Michael Stone, and there was something about getting into this rebel scum. So we're actually calling it the Union Bears, and me and the other 3 or 4 guys in their late 50s, early 60s in the main stand, the Copeland end of the main stand, we're calling the Union Bears shite bags for only going with a picture as soon as you could have went with Michael Stone. You'd have been a lot harder. So it's a bit of a general feel for the game of the day. Could have been better, could have been worse. And a lot of technical misunderstandings that are perfectly understandable in themselves are what caused it to be a draw that Rangers will not be too ashamed with. Ultimately, victory. As far as I'm concerned, it's victory. It's victory. It was a real struggle to get there. It was touch and go, but ultimately managed to win, get the win short term. That I wanted. What I'm trying to say is, for me, there's not a few games to go. You get the ultimate prize. The ultimate prize is perfect attendance at Rangers home games this season. That's enough to tell you again 15, 16 times per pod since Christmas, when my wife got me a ticket for Krapp's last tape, the starring, directed by and designed by Gary Oldman. That Gary Oldman, she got me that's Christmas present. Absolutely brilliant. I studied Krapp's last tape when I was doing my remedial woodwork class. I've seen a few productions, and I actually did my own production. Remember, that's the preview of the St Johnstone game this season. One of the St Johnstone games this season, I did a wee 10-minute bit for Krapp's last tape because it was the only way I could live with myself for the story I was about to tell about a guy for the Warsaw, the Polish National Theatre in Warsaw, who was in a lecture. He lectured me about Krapp's last tape, and something happened in that lecture that was quite pertinent to what was happening with Rangers at that point in time as far as I was concerned, but it might sound like I was making a fool of the guy, so I just did a bit I did Krapp's last tape to make a fool of myself, to kind of offer that up as a, can you now allow me to tell that story? I did, so I was like, really, that's great, it's fantastic, it's brilliant, it's a dream come true to go and see a production of this quality with a star name and a star name directing it, and he's using the same tape recorder, the old cassette, the old spool, Christ Alec, spool, that's one of the main lines in the thing. He's using the one it was handed to him by John Hurt, and Michael Gambon had also used it in the productions that they did. Two actors no longer with us. So it was the depths that were there, and because there's so many depths. I mean, in terms of subtextual stuff with Krapp's last tape, it's screeds and screeds, massive volumes. There's more unsaid in Krapp's last tape than is said in Proust's Remembrance of Things Past, but the whole point of the actual dialogue, the actual script and all that, the whole production, it's usually less than an hour. It's done in less than an hour. So initially I'd been like, when is that? Oh, that's a great present. And she's like, you might know what date it is, don't you? It's, what date is it? And it's the first weekend in May. That's going to be the last Old Firm game of the season, and it's going to be Celtic at Ibrox. And we're probably going to win the league that day. That could be the day we actually win the league title. Certainly we could go right in front in the league. It's going to be a crucial game. And, I missed the same one, the last Ibrox Old Firm game last season because, the 25th wedding anniversary thing, and we went to Nashville and all that, and I thought I'd maybe get a break. I said, I'm actually getting you your dream present, and the first thing, no, she didn't do that. She didn't do that because, people who know. And she's like, okay, because the next day, Boxing Day, we're playing St Mirren at Paisley and we get beat. And she's like, I just book the hotels in. Just book the hotels. That'll be absolutely fine. And it turns out today, Celtic have already won the league. They've already won the league by the time we actually play this game. But only last week. No, it wasn't that bad. So there was no, but it's still that all I had was I just wanted perfect attendance. I wanted to be able to go to every single Rangers game this season because we were at Hampden at the beginning of the season, no Ibrox. There was no appetite to play home pre-season friendlies, and it's usually the pre-season friendlies that do me in terms of perfect home attendance. I'll never miss more than 1, 2 at most home games a season, or in Hampden as well, included in that if we get to semi-finals and finals. But usually I'll end up missing a pre-season friendly because you're on holiday, you know, and there's this, and folk who know about football even but don't go to every game possible, they've got this thing where they'll say to you, but you've gone to all the other games in the season, why are you bothered about missing one? You know, it's like you've got lots of football. You've got hundreds of Mars bars. Why are you bothered about giving me one? No, actually, doesn't work either because I would be bothered about giving somebody one Mars bar. But you know what I mean? It's why, and they don't. But it's not like that. You know, it is every. And also, you want to do perfect attendance. The people will understand when it's a massive game, right? You go to football all the time, but oh god, it's a European semi-final. I get why you don't want to make that the one game you've missed this season. But when I was telling my wife, even in December, about, you know, anybody really about a game that we were going to be playing in May and how it's going to, which I think things are going to be done and dusted by then. Alec, I think you'll be alright. So it's like, get a hotel booked in, that's fine, the Friday night, Saturday, because the production's on a Saturday night. I suddenly realised, no, wait a minute, Saturday night, and it's what Krapp's last tape, it is only an hour long. What's stopping us just going down and back up the same day? I've been to see like Liverpool at Anfield. It wasn't Liverpool, it was Bordeaux. I was going to see Bordeaux, one of the 105 clubs that played in a European final that I need to get off the list. I've seen 77 of them so far. This was about 9 years ago. Bordeaux were playing Liverpool at Anfield. That's too close to ignore. It was a Europa League group stage. Liverpool fans aren't interested in anything other than the Champions League and playing Manchester United at home. So I was like, right, I'll be able to get a ticket for that, and I did. And I just drove down there. I left about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I was back in the house for 2 o'clock in the morning at the very latest. I thought, that's only an hour long. What time's this kick off? It's a half seven kick off. And I thought, that's fine. Just decided to just drive down, back up, left the house basically before 11 o'clock yesterday morning, and I was back in the house for midnight. I picked the bins out. Really, that's why I was wanting to do it. I picked the bins out of the blue bin last night, picked that out at midnight, and it had been picked up and emptied, and I put it back in the house before I left for the game of the day. So I don't really know what all that worry was about and all the really boring stories I was telling you, unlike this one. Since I got that present in December, I was just really worried about not having perfect attendance. And I think when it's a season like this, in particular, when the team are doing particularly badly on the domestic front anyway, that's when you want to earn your stripes, and that's when you want to keep earning your stripes. So that when it's all turned around, as it always does get turned around with Rangers, and we're lifting the trophies, and there's folk who, you know, were booing the Fitba team this season, and weren't turning up to games, and we're telling everybody where they're going wrong. When they're standing there giving it, oh, I've always been a Ranger, I love this, I'm Rangers through and through, you're thinking, you know that you were really there. You were really there, sticking by the team, and getting them from one bad period into a good period. But there's also just the total anal retentive thing that I have of wanting to do something properly. So I want to get to that game. So there's a lot of traffic about here, and I'm trying to make it less noisy for you. Although you're probably happy with the background noise because it's stopping this part. What I'm trying to say to you is I'm a bit edgy, I'm a bit antsy. This isn't going to be the best pod you've ever heard in your life. But it's because I was on the Coca-Cola and I drove 7 hours in the car yesterday, and I went back up the roads, stopped in the A59 just outside York, heading to get back onto the M1, Scottish Corner, you know. A1, Scottish Corner, A66, and you're over to the M1, Scottish Corner, A66, and you're over onto the M6, M74, and that's you up the road. But I was just outside York on the way back yesterday. The play was fantastic. It was great. I'll explain that to you later, and for the rest of the season. I'll be referencing it in every single pod I ever do from now on. I mean, it's a fucking play about a guy who's recording his own voice all the time, and then listening to his own voice. As life, like the wee sweeping man behind me, just keeps coming back and reminding him that he's made a massive mistake. So obviously it's got big associations for myself, but I had to go in and get some Coca-Cola. I got the petrol, topped up the petrol for the journey back up the road, and I thought, I mean, obviously I live off Coca-Cola and chocolate, as you can see by looking at me, but I don't usually have Coca-Cola or chocolate after 7 o'clock at night, because at my age that's going to keep you up for 3 weeks. But I needed to be up for it last night. I needed to make sure I wasn't going to crash the motor any way I could possibly be up for it, in the way coming back up the roads, being as fat and old as I am. I need to try harder to keep myself awake. So filled up the motor with the unleaded and a bit in there, and I got myself a double bounty bar, a Snickers bar, and a wee can of Coke. Just a can of Coke, and that's all it takes. Ice cold can of Coke at that time of night. It's like, oh, you beauty, for somebody who doesn't do proper drugs like myself. So I'm edgy, I'm antsy, I'm ranting and raving. It looks like energy, maybe, but it isn't, because there's an underlying... I didn't really get proper sleep the night before, because I knew how much driving and all that we're going to have to do, and I was really excited about seeing the play. And then I didn't really get a lot of sleep last night, because I'd taken the chocolate and the Coca-Cola, so late in the day. So it was... I might sound a bit energetic, but the energy's not really telling you anything you want to know. It's not really entertaining, it's not really getting you there. It is a Rangers pod, but it isn't really. But yeah, I seem to be quite kind of buzzing and what have you. And that's, see, I'm actually talking about the game. I'm talking about the game, aren't I? Because that's Rangers, isn't it? That's Rangers of the day. We don't have the players, we don't have the technical ability. They're all knackered as well, but the energy was there. Barry's put the energy into. Barry's been the Coca-Cola, Barry's been the Bounty Bar, he's obviously been the wee Snickers bar the day. But Rangers are far from perfect. Something's not quite right, but he's just given them that boost. And there's still the Cadbury's boost, but I had one of them as well, that's managed to, well, certainly make sure we weren't going to lose that game. And at various points you thought we might actually win the thing, but for me it's ultimate victory. Ultimate victory was achieved. It wasn't a draw as far as I'm concerned, because I'm definitely still on course to lift my own personal league title of being to every home Rangers game this season. But it was a draw, wasn't it? It was a draw. I'm talking complete cack. How you doing, folks? Sorry about this. This is your Fat Eck immediate post. Rangers have taken the lead in a match at Ibrox for the first time in over 3 months. Rangers have failed to lose to a domestic opponent at Ibrox for the first time since the 2nd of February, I think it is. Over 3 months. Reaction pod coming to you in association with Jersnet. Check out Jersnet tonight, a flagship show. I don't know who's on it. It's on at 9:30 live on the Jersnet YouTube channel. Just because I was at a play yesterday. It was Gary Oldman and Krapp's last tape. Did I mention the Theatre Royal in Yorkshire? It's Jersnet. It's on the night, 9:30. I don't know who's on it. Not a chance to check it out. But it was John and Colin were on Friday night, 9 o'clock, the preview pod. So if you want some proper Rangers patter in lieu of this thing just now and before Jersnet starts tonight, go and check that out. That was John and Colin are always good on Jersnet. And I'm also sponsored by Hogging the Middle Lane. Hogging the Middle Lane. I'm talking about driving down to York yesterday. I was driving down there a couple of times. It's a new motor, new to me anyway. So still getting kind of used to it, and I like my driving. I like motorway driving. I'm usually going to fit, but usually going to hold or something like that. I really enjoy it. But yesterday I found myself thinking, am I stuck in a bit? And I would just drive under a big sign, almost like getting in the mood for, Krapp's last tape and its hidden depths. The sign's hanging over the motorway, and it's saying, don't hog the middle lane. Don't hog the middle lane. No, they sometimes say tiredness can kill, take a break. I never go on that one. But it's like, don't hog the middle. I thought, I've been hogging the middle lane, and that's not like me. I'm usually fast lane all the time. Usually it's like going to England, going back up the road, just getting that fast. Just go as fast as you possibly can. Get up there as quickly as possible. But I had been in the middle lane yesterday. I thought that's a problem with Rangers, isn't it? That's been the problem with Rangers this season. We've been not hogging the middle lane, we've been slow lane or we've been fast lane. We've been slow lane against everybody who is below us in this league table, dropping points to teams we should be conceding more goals than we should, to the Dundees and the Hearts and the Dundee Uniteds and the St Mirrens of the world. But fast lane, in the fast lane, the only team that's above us in the league table, they can't beat us. They can't beat us now. We even play quite poorly against them today. They still can't beat us. And you've got Manchester United. They just beat us with injury time. They're going to be in a European final. Man United. It's Man United or Man United. They're going to get a 100,000 capacity stadium and stuff like that. They've got 75,000 capacity stadium as it is. They've won 3 Champions Leagues and stuff. It's Manchester United, biggest club in Britain, one of the biggest sport. I think they're the top 20. They're definitely top 15, I think, of sports franchises, whatever, in terms of wealth or potential wealth. But the San Francisco 49ers are a few places above them. Only Real Madrid and Barcelona are up there with Manchester United. Other ones are all basketball teams and gridiron teams. Maybe the odd maybe the odd MLB franchise. But there's teams like that, they last minute, Spurs came here, they're worth millions as well. I know they're having a good season domestically, but we held them, really should have beat them. Athletic Club Bilbao, you get the idea of what I'm saying. Well, we've really got to, Athletic Club Bilbao, they beat Real Madrid this season. They've really got to up the ante when we're playing these kind of teams, and we're quite happy in the fast lane. We'd go really well in the fast lane. It's the slow stuff, it's the middle lane stuff, and I'm quite happy. I've told you before, I did a 3-hour pod about it the other week, saying how Europe's a big thing for me. Europe's where you really make a name for yourself. Europe's where you can be really proud of your club, particularly the situation Rangers are in, where mostly we're playing clubs smaller than ourselves in Scotland. We've got an almost unfair advantage. In Europe, you get to play the big boys with folk notice you in continental competition, that's the stuff. And it seems to be, for most of my adult life, most of my life, Rangers only do well in European competition, have a decent European season, almost at the expense, it would seem, of a domestic, of our domestic ability. We have a bad domestic season, but no, I would prioritise, if I could, European competition, but there's no getting away from the fact that the domestic stuff, that's never made it being your bread and butter. I hate that phrase. Rangers don't deal in bread and butter, we're all about steak and prawns, stuff like that, you know, fancy stuff. Rangers should be doing big stuff, but there's no getting away from it. It is, you play mostly domestic football. You only get into Europe with domestic football, doing well in that, and it's always nice to see a team winning trophies, and a team of Rangers size should be taking care of business at home as well. We should be winning half the trophies at least domestically, the size we are compared to everybody else bar one in Scotland. So it's, we need to maybe go middle lane. We need to go middle lane. No deal smarty feed, just maybe chalk European competition. I hope not. But maybe we need to be more of a middle lane club if we're going to start winning things domestically. But hopefully these people that come in, get a part at the train station in York. They parked at the train station, £9 for 24 hours. So just walking up or the bridge or the big platforms to get into York train station to head into York Town Centre. It's really in the Town Centre anyway. And there was boys coming across the bridge, all the guys the same age as myself, and I've got to fit my tops on under the jackets, the smart casual stuff. And I'm like, what? That's a Red Bull. It's Leeds. No, Leeds. We're playing Plymouth. They're in Plymouth. So I think it might have been obviously a lot of Leeds United supporters in York, but I think Leeds must have been. And they must have had a wee party or something. Maybe they were having a thing in the stadium at Ellen Road to celebrate winning the league or something like that. But these boys, they were in the station anyway at York, gone somewhere or coming from somewhere, all the way on the Leeds United tops and the Red Bull. And I thought, yeah, that's Leeds sealing the title in the last minute, and you saw Red Bull Leipzig stopped Bayern Munich, winning the title in the last minute in injury time last night. And there's a bit of pep, not Pep Guardiola, but the kind of stuff you get for Red Bull. And there is at times this season you've been thinking, fucking rename Ibrox the soft drink Ibrox Megadome and get Red Bull, just got the governed Red Bulls, I don't care, just get fucking domestic trophies on board. So hopefully we're heading that way. These guys are going to be, it was all about Barry. For me, it was all about Barry, making sure he wasn't going to have anything blotting his CV, blotting his reputation, and the people who don't like Rangers, and I've met folk who don't like Rangers could say, oh Barry, that's right, he did in his time as Rangers manager. Nothing really bad you can say about Barry's time as Rangers manager. Maybe get handed a 5-0 down at Easter Road on the last day of the season or something like that, but even then, not compared to all the major worries that we had when Barry took over the job, the games that were on the horizon, and you saw potential disaster, potential embarrassment. Barry's negotiated all of them particularly well. I'm sponsored by Gersnet, and I'm also sponsored by Taking That Middle Lane. My name's Alec Anderson. Hats off to Larry. This may sound cruel, but you laughed at me when you said we were through. You told me lies. Well, it's your turn to cry, cry, cry. Now that Larry said goodbye to you. The depths. This Fat Egg podcast, it's really deep. What is he saying? What does he mean by that? Larry's supposed to, it rhymes with Barry, but you told me lies. Hats off to Barry because he got a draw with Celtic. Surely that's no something a Rangers supporter should be boasting about. It's actual embarrassment. You're playing at him, you can't even beat us at him. Maybe it's that kind of, is that what he's mean? Hats off to Barry, like he's trying to bum up Barry Ferguson's time as Rangers manager. But you told me lies. It's your turn to cry, cry, cry. Is it Philip Clement? Is it actually a kind of a quote for Philip Clement? Conte's imagining there, Philip Clement, who beat Celtic 3-0 at Ibrox, and it's like, well, you told me lies, you gave me an extended contract, and then you sacked me. You gave me an extended contract last summer, you told me there's going to be a takeover, you told me that we didn't have a sporting director, obviously we didn't have a chief executive at the time, so maybe you told me lies that my job was going to be alright because I was going to have to take on board some of the duties. And then you sacked me anyway just because I won Piddle and we defeated Queen's Park in the Scottish Cup. So maybe it's your turn to cry because Barry can't beat Celtic at Ibrox, but I could. No, that's not Philip Clement I'm quoting. Maybe he means it's Del Shannon. It's a Del Shannon song. Maybe he's saying the current board are a bunch of Del boys. That's why Rangers haven't done well in the domestic scene this season, because they're not spending the money. They're a bunch of Del boys. No, I don't mean that. Maybe it's Shannon, Del Shannon. He was talking about maybe Shannon let the music play. He was quoting her. He was singing her wee song. Let the music play after the home draw with Athletic Bilbao and his post-match reaction that night. I'm talking to myself in the third person. This is what happens when you start hanging about with lovies. He was talking about that in the post-match reaction, that when he was crying with pride after the 0-0 draw with 9 Rangers players on the park against Athletic Club Bilbao. Let the music play, and he was talking about how if you let the music, Rangers just let the European music play, it won't get away. Just go along with the tune, and eventually you'll get your love, which is an adventure in European football that you can be proud of at the end of the season. I did actually mean winning the trophy, but no, we'll edit that slightly to suit ourselves, or maybe just meant Shannon, all the Basques in the crowd that night, they were all waving the flags of Ireland, and they were been waving the crowd, the away section today, in that same corner today, were waving their flags of Ireland. Maybe it just means beautiful Shannon in the Republic of Ireland. No, I don't mean, I just make this stuff up as I go along, and if you can read depths into it, then you're doing my job for me. Just pseudo-intellectual pish. But I am talking to you outside Ibrox immediately after Rangers drew the 5th and final Old Firm game of the season by losing 1-3 to VAR. VAR beating us 3-1 today. I don't know how many times we are going to take the lead against Celtic at Ibrox in Old Firm games, and it's going to get chopped off by VAR. Obviously, should have had a penalty as well. Celtic goes to VAR. They get their goal. It's flagged off straight away. All 3 decisions could be perfectly valid, perfectly fine. I'm just come out of the game. I'm trying to create some controversy here. Maybe it is genuinely controversial. Maybe I'll get home and the guy who's definitely... I'm just patting him off. I'm sending off. I'm going to send off Diamandi, even though yous that have all got a perfect view of this and doing your job as VAR officials, yous are not telling me he shouldn't get sent off. Or maybe it's the VAR the other way about, where the guy on the park hasn't spotted the penalty. It's like, was that on the line, or was it in the box at Hampden in the League Cup final in extra time? It's quite a big decision. Nah, it's no. We're just a wee look there, and it's no a penalty, even though it absolutely was. So we've got, everybody's got it right, but everybody's upset with VAR. Everybody's just upset with officials not giving them the right calls. Every single one of them could have been a perfect call. I don't know. I'm just talking out of hand in the heat of the moment, and it definitely is becoming a theme that Rangers get goals disallowed against Celtic a hell of a lot. And I know certain clubs out there, if they're having goals disallowed in big derbies all the time, their chairman and their chief executive would be hounding the governing body to the point where, I don't know, something to do with spam folders. It's an Old Firm game. It's supposed to create controversy, but I'm talking to you after Rangers drew 1-1 with Celtic in the final SPFL Premiership Old Firm game of the season, the 5th Old Firm game of the season. Celtic becoming the first Scottish team to fail to beat Rangers at Ibrox since the 2nd of February for over 3 months. And I don't know, that bit right at the end, would you... was it actually Nico Raskin that saved that at the end? Was it Nico Raskin that came and dug Tav out the hole when we thought Celtic were going to score by the very last kick of the ball in like the 99th minute of the game? Or is it just me imagining that because we saw something happening today? If it was like a normal, maybe a kind of unspectacular summer, which we hope it is, and we hope it's going to be a spectacular summer in terms of squad changes at Ibrox, but if it wasn't, you'd be thinking Nico Raskin, this was a day he became captain basically, and Tav perhaps lost the captaincy. The whole performance for Rangers today, as I say, was like somebody who'd had to have a bit of a can of Coke and a Mars bar to keep themselves pepped up. It wasn't perfect, but it got there in the end, and it's all credit to Barry, who's obviously decided we're not going to lose this game today and made that happen, or made that not happen. But a few dodgy moments, and Nico Raskin probably had dodgy moments as well. Nobody was perfect. That Rangers performance wasn't perfect in any way, but it was just enough there. There's enough energy, enough determination to make sure it wasn't a horrible end to the season. So Tav is in front of me when I'm up for 97 minutes. The Boars have got up 97 minutes. It's going to be 7 minutes injury time. I'm thinking, oh Christ, here we go. The black superstition, the total pessimism, and also the kind of trying to out superstition yourself by saying, I said to the guy next to me, Celtic, we need to score here to make sure we don't lose the game. We need to take the lead in injury time to make sure we don't lose, because Celtic they'd equalise on the second half. They probably felt they had the momentum. They seemed to be catching us in the break anytime we did get forward. You're thinking, maybe it just looked like the classic Celtic glory. They've won the league, the pressure's off them. They've nothing greatly to prove. They can smell blood here. We're tiring. We've not been great all season. Just be like, I think they've got to score in injury time. But then, of course, what happens is we've got the ball, Tav's got the ball, doing right in front of me, on the right-hand side, just in front of me when I'm sitting in the main stand. It's pitting one of your balls, pitting one of your perfect balls, your perfect deliveries, and maybe that's going to be the winner for us, the late winner for us. Absolutely perfect end to the day. But he managed to turn, just turned it into Celtic being clean through on goal. Was it James Forrest? I don't even know. Through on goal. So this is it. They're just going to walk this in. And I don't know who came in to stop it. Maybe the Celtic player made an arse of it on his own. I think Liam Kelly came out. Did he make a good save? I have no idea what happened. I just know that Tav got halfway it. And in my mind, it was Nico Raskin that sorted it, because I saw a handing over at the armband. If this was a normal season, a normal pre-season that we're coming up to, I think it's a moment where Nico Raskin is captain. He gets in Celtic's face in a way that, unfortunately, when we're playing in Europe, we're playing these fast lane games, Tav's perfect. Tav's just absolutely brilliant, because he can play at that level. He's a technician supreme. Going forward, maybe no checking back, as he showed the other day, but he leads by example in that way. I mean, we know Nico Raskin loves Tav as well. He said as much when he got the captaincy in Tav's absence when we pumped Celtic 3-0, I think it was, in January at Ibrox. Maybe. But I feel as if what we've got, the middle lane stuff we've got to do if we want to start overcoming Celtic in terms of winning trophies. We're doing that already in terms of overcoming the major problem that is beating Celtic themselves. It's Nico Raskin gets in the face of Callum McGregor. He stops Callum McGregor doing the Scott Brown thing, which is a carry-on from the Peter Lawwell thing, the political stuff of us not being in the top flight for 4 years. Our fault. But again, I think you feel as if you're not just playing against 11 guys, you're playing against 11 guys with influence behind the scenes. Total paranoia. Celtic are a better team at that point in time, obviously, when we come back into the top flight. But you feel as if there's definitely a lot of that going on. And you notice it the past few games, there's always bitching and kind of having a wee dig at each other with McGregor. He's no letting. There's a couple of times a day I saw him, Nico Raskin, just running up there when McGregor was trying to talk to the referee. He's trying to talk to the linesman. He's trying to run the officiating of the game, and Raskin's no having it, and it gets petty and it gets, narky and all that. But it's needed. You need to stand up to this shit. You need to stop that happening, and then you need to allow it to be a straightforward football match. But Celtic are completely capable of winning against us, but not in the last 4 games now, over 90 minutes. You can say Brendan Rodgers has only beaten Rangers once over 90 minutes this season, and it sounds like me being a pathetic Rangers supporter, which is exactly what I am. You didn't lose the League Cup final. It's a final. It goes to penalties if it's not decided after the extra time. We've already mentioned the officiating that day, but we didn't win it on a day. But from a Rangers point of view, Celtic scored 3 times and still couldn't beat us in normal play. And then we turned that round to beating them 3-0 under a manager this is 2 games under a manager that we were in the course of sacking, and then we get an interim manager in, and he's had 2 games against Celtic, 1-1 at Parkhead, and then 1-1 today, but he won one of those games, WONONE of those games, and then he's drawn the other one today. So there's no fear factor with the one team that we've got to go for, the one team we've got to be better than at Rangers now. But it's everybody else. It's all the teams below us in the league. That's the real problem. But it was the team today. We set out. We didn't go with the 3 at the back that I thought. That was kind of. I don't know if I was hoping we would go with 3 at the back. I just thought we would. I thought maybe that would be the best way to approach it. Just stick with the system that we should be getting used to, even though it was really crap. And that's what Barry does. Barry does change things. I don't think he's not achieved. He's not achieving the any better results against everybody else in Scotland. Against Celtic, you can now say he's basically done the same over 90 minutes as Clermont did, drew one and won one in his last 2 Old Firm games. But he's won a European knockout tie post group stage, which is something Clermont's never done in his career, and didn't do it with Rangers last season against Benfica. I was worried when Barry took over, as we've been through this so many times. Barry was going to, I mean, we had the whole thing with the King coming in. I feel the day it's a bit like the King, King Charles. He's seen off one pope, but he waited for ages to actually take over, and he's on his way. I think it's the big casino for Charles, isn't it? He's got to cancel, so we don't know how long we're going to have Charles, but he had to wait for ages. And the main monarch, as far as I'm concerned, our whole lives were dominated by Elizabeth II. I'll never seen the same without her, even though she lives on in our heart. I'm just doing this to annoy. I'm just doing this to annoy any Celtic fans who might be watching. But I did love the Queen, in a way that you can love somebody that you've never actually met, and is the head of an organisation that you know what I'm saying. But the Queen, she's how many popes did she see off? She saw off so many popes. She was the main one when it came to that kind of stuff, totally leading the country that way. And then Charles comes in, and he's not going to get a lot of time at it, is he? He's not really going to get a lot of time at the gig that he waited for so long. But he managed to see one off. And that's him. He's got a result, and he can go now, and we'll remember him fondly for that. And it's the same with Barry. Everybody talks about, you get the folk who kind of get a bit forgetful, and they say that maybe no into it as much as you, and they're like, oh, that's right, it was David Murray brought Souness to the club, the Souness Revolution. It was David Murray, wasn't it? And it's not Souness brought Murray to the club. It's actually Lawrence Marlborough. Folk kind of forget about that kind of thing. You get a lot of that same stuff with folk. It was Dick Advocaat that brought Barry Ferguson into the Rangers team. No, Dick Advocaat gave him a regular game, more of a regular game, but obviously it's Walter Smith, the real monarch, the Rangers manager that will dominate my life, the guy that totally dominated Celtic, saw off Celtic so many times. Walter Smith. Barry in his interimship is never going to get a chance to do that. Barry was brought in by Walter Smith last game, a 9-in-a-row season, 96-97. Then Walter had him playing a few times for the first team the following season. And of course, he's a couple of years older by the time. Barry's a couple of years older, more likely to get game time when Dick Advocaat comes in. But when we're having those moments where we think everything Scottish is shite, which we would if Barry was allowed to continue as manager, there has to be an overarching philosophy that you can't just say that manager isn't very good, those results aren't very good, we need to change something about them. It's got to be something, it's an overarching philosophy that's really obvious. So it's been, we need a Rangers man, we need a good Rangers man in the job. It's just that particular Belgian wasn't very good for us. So the whole thing, folk want to say Advocaat was the guy that made Barry Ferguson, because short-sighted Scottish managers are so myopic, they hate their own, they don't give youth a chance and all that. No, it was just a wee bit older, and Advocaat maybe saw slightly more in them than Walter Smith did. But Advocaat also had different players round about Barry, so he brought him on, but it was Walter, the real Rangers regent, as far as I'm concerned, the real Rangers monarch of my life. Pumps Celtic all the time, brings Barry in. Barry's never going to be able to do that kind of stuff, but he comes in for his short reign, Barry, and he has not lost to Celtic. He's beaten them at Parkhead, drew with them, fighting performance today to draw with them at Ibrox, and you had the great European nights when Barry took over that job, and my love for him just came back to the fore. I didn't like the way Barry had to be thrown out the club by Walter, had to be sold back in the day, but Barry's grown up. He's a man now, and he's done the media thing, and he's conducted himself absolutely brilliantly. And I've just felt the love straight away. It's a family kind of love where you can fall out, but it's there all the time. And I was terrified for him. I was terrified. The main topics of that terror were that he was going to get horsed in Europe. He's up against Jose Mourinho in his first European game. Christ Almighty! He's only managed Clyde and Alloa and Celtic Hearts and Blackpool. This is just unfair almost. And he was going to get. And even when you get past that, you're still thinking Athletic Club Bilbao could totally destroy him. It gives an absolute horse, and that wouldn't be fair for Barry to have that on his CV for just being enough of a Ranger to be unable to avoid taking the job, to want to come in and take care of us really in our hour of need. He's given this poison chalice, and the other thing I feared was Celtic coming to Ibrox and winning the league, because it was looking like that was likely at the point in time Barry took over. That was still a big possibility. Imagine having that's no fair on Barry. Celtic come to Ibrox and they actually seal the league title at Ibrox, only second time in their history, because that's one each as well. But none of that happened. So the only thing to fear was this was his last Old Firm game in charge, and maybe there was a chance he was going to. It was going to take a tank in the day. Things would go really badly. Celtic fans would always be able to taunt you. A total Rangers man shouldn't have that kind of that shouldn't be allowed. It shouldn't be happening. Life's cruel. It does happen, but I just didn't want it for Barry. And no, he hasn't lost. All the worries are there. We could take a 5-0 down off Hibs Easter Road last day of the season, as I say, but aye, Barry can go now. He can go after taking. I suppose he's got to win a home game. He's got to hope he can win a home game as Rangers manager. He's got 2 more goes at that. But aye, it's a big relief for me. Anyway, as a Rangers supporter, to know that none of these horrible scenarios and these nightmare scenarios came to pass. And that was a general kind of feeling the day, and I think maybe the way the game was approached as well. But we didn't have the 3 centre halves. And Leon Balogun did make it wearing his mask, playing with John Souttar, and it was a kind of 4-4-2, sorry, a 4-3-3, I think. And with Bajrami, I did mention that I thought Bajrami would be worth a go because he's a bit gallus in the big games. He suits Rangers, and Barry did. It's quite a call to have him back in the team today. And I feel as if he's in the front 3, but he's almost kind of playing. He's getting a bit withdrawn, playing like a 10, sitting behind. You know, Cherny would come in a bit with Dessers. They're playing as a 2 up front. And I don't know if Conor Barham is kind of sitting back from time to time in the midfield to make it like a 4 diamond 2, a diamond in the middle with Raskin and Diamandi either side of him. But it was kind of 4-3-3 that would go to a 4 diamond 2 or a 4-2-1-2, 4-3-1-2 at times, whatever, you know. But we weren't playing with the 3 centre halves. Hefty and Tav as were wing backs, and Liam Kelly, of course, keeps his place in goal. And did I tell you that we thought it was Michael Stone? Did I mention about Michael Stone? I tell you, no, when Rangers this. Did I mention that we thought it was Michael Stone? This is the problem. I tell you, this pod was going to be terrible. It's going to be all over the place. Long story short, if I have mentioned this, you can have a right good laugh at me for repeating myself. I'm getting to that kind of... It's that stage of the season, never mind my age. And also, Krapp's last tape was a lot of repetition on it, so you can just see it poetically. But at the beginning of the game, a day now since we moved, the Copeland Road moved to... I started with that story, didn't I? The Copeland Road, the Tifos on the Copeland Road this season, because the Union Bears moved to Copeland Road. We thought it was Michael Stone. Everybody ran about the bit of him, and we thought that it was... But it turned out it was the picture of Souness, you know, and with the guy... I mentioned the Sopranos thing, didn't I? Oh, God, the shotgun, the Sopranos type of shotgun. So we actually thought the Union Bears were being shite bags today because it could have been harder, it could have been more staunch. The Tifo, sorry folks, it's been that kind of season. It's been that kind of 24 hours. But we launched we won a corner within like a minute of kick-off, and Balogun goes in there like Zorro. Maybe if he wasn't wearing the mask, he'd be more accurate. I think it comes off the top of the bar, and then Celtic at about the half an hour mark, it was Carter Vickers, I think, got up to a corner, and he has a header which comes off, get pushed onto the bar, comes off the top of the bar, and that was kind of the closest there had been, except for in between about 25 minutes or so. Ball into the box, and Nico Raskin heads it in. We're all going nuts, we're all going crazy. But I thought it was there's a bit of a kind of delay in the celebrations. There was something not quite right about the celebrations. Maybe that was just imagined. I don't know. Maybe we're just not used to taking the lead against anybody these days. We just don't do it at Ibrox. But it looked like everybody was celebrating the goal. Everyone was fine. My God, we've taken the lead. I said to the guy next to me, we've actually taken the lead in a game, and taking the lead's massive in these games. You know, talk about stating the obvious. And next thing, it's the VAR. There's going to be a VAR check, and it's sunny, and it's Celtic at Ibrox. And that seems to be the scenario all the time. It's sunny and it's Celtic at Ibrox. Whether it's last season, Dessers at the start of the second half, or the other game, the previous game last season, Dessers and Lager Bielka and all that kind of nonsense, and Kamar Roof, and sunny at Parkhead with Morelos scoring that goal. Oh, you've put him. It just seems to be we always get vital opening goals against Celtic disallowed, but it gives us a chance to refresh the need in our heads to score the first goal. How vital it was to score the first goal in all firm games, and Rangers just kept pushing on. It wasn't like the best one ever of this scenario today. The best example ever was the day where Celtic were coming to win the league. They could win the league at Ibrox in the 2011-2012 season, a legendary game, obviously, and we were going to doing the Swanee financially. It was getting pretty bad, and we got the points deduction. That meant Celtic could come and win the league at Ibrox in the March. And I remember coming off the parking the car that day and coming along Copeland Road, and there was just a feeling in the air of it's not going to happen. This will not be allowed to happen, and it was magical. There's a bit of that. I felt as if there's a bit of that about us today, where it was like, okay, we might not win this game, but we're not going to get beat. So we had a go at it again. We didn't like the fact that we hadn't been allowed to take the lead against Celtic, because obviously it was offside. I'm not trying to say there's conspiracies or anything like that. Long VR check, it's ruled out, but Rangers, the actual team Rangers, had a bit more belief in them than I think the support, and they kept going. And I just said to the fella next to me, the only chances, there'd been a moment where John Souttar had stayed up for a free kick or a corner, and the ball get recycled. I think it was Tav that whipped the ball back into the back of their box, and John Souttar got a header on it. He won the header, and it went kind of a few yards past the far post, but you thought, a better connection there, that's in the top bin. I'm thinking maybe that's our best tactic today, because Cherny was a bit off it. It was good runs and what have you. He's always a threat. His pace has them worried. He's good at kind of leading the line in that respect, but he occupies Celtic's defence, but he wasn't... Technically, he was making a lot of mistakes. We weren't doing well in terms of just ball on the deck. Dessers playing instead of Egeman. I thought it would be. We're never going to see. I think we're going to see Dessers and Egeman. We're rarely going to see Egeman instead of Dessers. And a few times we're just starting to slag Dessers for not being able to hold the ball up and not really being able to and giving the ball away, etc. Just as I don't know what happened. We had broke a few times in Celtic for a Celtic corner. We were right up through on them at one point, and I always like that. I like the idea that they know that even when they're deep in our territory, the closer they get to your goal, the more danger there is for them at the back. So I like that. That always shows that we're doing well in a game like this. And we did. It was Celtic were in our half, they were outside our box, and next thing we're through on them. I can't remember the details. I just know I'd just been saying to the fella next to me, he'd been slagging Dessers rotten, and I'd be going at our best hope today as a ball into the box to one of our centre halves. Dessers spins the guy. I think we've been talking about how he couldn't hold the ball, and he was. So he takes the ball, spins and slots it away. Like it did against St Mirren last week, it was classic centre forward play. It was Big Cyril again going, I can't do it all. I just don't do it often enough. And when I don't do it, it's really noticeable. But it was a fantastic goal. And that's us, 40 odd minutes? They're kind of late on in the first half, we score the goal, the place goes wild. Out in the second half, there's no changes. Arthur Newman does the half-time draw, looking like he could still play. And Celtic scored, was it 58 minutes, 55, 56 minutes or something like that? I can't even remember what happened. There was a lot of the ball bouncing about. I think it was a simple kind of ball over the top of us, really. Gets cut back, and there was a deflection and a ricochet and, ping, pang, pong, and breaks of the ball and stuff like that, and they hit the ball. I don't even know if it was a clean connection or whatever, but it ends up in the back of the net. They're going mental. Why are we letting them back into the ground? I'm quite happy for us not going to Parkhead, not have any support at Parkhead. They don't have them back in our grounds. I don't miss. Sorry for it. Just the Old Firm games are horrible. I mean, for base sides, but I don't like them. So and it goes the collage. I'm thinking, shit, here we go. And then it was. They started to notice everything that was right and everything that was wrong with our performance. We weren't getting put off. Nico Raskin was everywhere. Hefty's gone down the wing, and then Nico Raskin, who's supposed to be sitting in the middle, is appearing, outside him, overlapping him to get the ball. He's showing he's in about it, and he's in about everybody. He's in the heart of the action. And Tav was, doing his running. Hefty's doing his running, but his inability. Hefty can't. His touch, his passing, his crossing, it's just there's nothing there a lot of the time. But I'm interested to see how he develops, because he's obviously got the pace of the game. He's got a lot of pace on him, and he's got a good engine on him. But I don't think he's going to be here. I think somebody in the Greek second division will pick him up. Talking of Greece, remember I was saying to you how Celtic and Rangers both drew away from home in their European group stage this season with the winner of the previous season's European tournament, the next tournament down. Like Celtic had drawn with Atalanta in Bergamo in the Champions League group stages after Atalanta, who qualified for it by winning last season's Europa League, and Rangers had drawn in Piraeus with Olympiacos in the group stage of the Europa League, which Olympiacos had qualified for by winning last season's Conference League. And then Celtic and Rangers both go out of the respective competitions to the club that is hosting the final of that competition this season. What didn't he? The other coincidence here is that Atalanta won the Europa League in Dublin. We all the Celtic associations, plenty of Rangers fans in Dublin. That was it used to be British basically. So there's lots, but if you talk about Dublin today and Glasgow, it's like a shorthand for Celtic, all things Irish in that respect. And Rangers, it was Olympiacos. They won their tournament in Athens, which is the seat of all learning, civilization, and culture. Oh, that sounded really bad, didn't it? That sounded like real. So I'm really keen on having the Celtic fans back in the stadium, but I don't know. Maybe it's better to let this stuff. It was. I don't know if it encourages stuff. We got to a point in the day where the Union Bears are holding up Celtic banners because the idea is they've leathered some Green Brigade and they've stolen their stuff off them. But the Green Brigade are holding up Rangers banners because the idea is they've leathered some Union Bears and stolen their stuff off them. It's like we've got to the point where it's gone so deep, it's gone full circle in the hatred. We shouldn't be in the same. Just stay apart for a while. But it kind of went back and forth in the second half. I don't know if Celtic were they're definitely looking a bit better. Celtic, they're getting more into the game, looking a bit more threatening, and any kind of break of the ball was going for Celtic. There's a few times a day you just thought, we're just going to let that ball run out. That ball's going to run out of play, but Celtic would keep it in. And it was partly Rangers players not expecting the ball to go out of play, but Celtic players being sharper and looking a bit hungrier, which wasn't going to be allowed by Barry, who was doing his dinger. We brought on Bailey Rice come on for. Who did Bailey Rice come on for? His injury was that Diamandi. Oh God, did Diamandi have to go off? But that was an injury time, was it? No, he went off with cramp. Anyway, Bailey Rice come on at one point. Bajrami. Nadeem Bajrami get taken off. And we brought on Yanis Hadji in place of him. That was about 65 minutes, and Igaman come on for Cherny, who was having a bit of a nightmare. I think ultimately the day did a very good game, and we brought on Igaman as well. So there's a bit more threat up front, and then Hadji lasts like 17 minutes, and it was a big, massive kind of pile-on in the box, in the 6-yard box, and I thought, we're all crying for a penalty, and there was a lot of outrage. I think Barry took a booking at that point for the referee. There's a lot of outrage in the Rangers technical area. I don't know if they've seen footage of whatever happened there, and they're just expecting it to be a penalty. There was no VAR check or anything. I don't know exactly what's happened there. You probably know better than me if you watched on the telly. I'll find out when I get back in the house. But that was Yanis Hadji injured after being in the park about 17 minutes. So he had to go off. Maybe that was the point. We brought on Bailey Rice and Nico Raskin went to 10, which should be as well done anyway because he was playing every position anyway the day. But there was a bit more, I don't know, I can't even remember any great details. It wasn't a game that ever really settled down into a set pattern, more a general back and forth. And as I say, at the end there was a chance I thought we were going to pile on and snatch it, but it turned into Celtic going clean through and goal, and you thought, here we go. It didn't happen. Fuck it, Gary Oldman. Krapp's last tape, all that kind of stuff. So you're driving down the motor and you're thinking about it. It's because you like Gary Oldman as well, because you like him as an actor. And you're thinking, what the Gary Oldman coach, what are you then, Bill? It's Bill Hayden that's playing George Smiley and Alfredson's adaptation of Tinker Tailor. What are you then, Bill? You think about that, you think about is it The Fifth Element? Mila Jovovich and Bruce Willis, he's in The Fifth Element. That's a 90s job. Really a great film, The Fifth Element, and somebody's saying to me, he's playing the kind of the evil baddie, and somebody's saying to him, you're horrible, or you're despicable, and he goes, no, and it's just the way he says it. That's an absolute classic. I love that one. Then there's all the quotes he's got, and prick up your ears, never mind prick up your ears, all the quotes he's got, and what's the other, Dracula, sorry, the boys kicking about here just trying to look at the stuff and I'm getting in their way. Obviously in Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula, creatures of the night, what sweet music they make. It's wolves, he's talking about wolves, and it's the better. So you're doing all the quotes all day, and then I'm saying I always remember in Prick Up Your Ears, Alan Bennett screenplay, based on the Joe Orton's diaries. It's a great film. It was the first time I saw Prick Up Your Ears. Didn't usually see stuff like that on television. You're like, oh Jesus Christ, this is good. Quite memorable, and I'd forgot the. there's a guy who he meets in a bus stop. He's coming back for his mum's funeral in Leicester, and he comes back down to London. And there's a guy he meets at a bus stop, and it's Paul Shane. It's Paul Shane, the guy who played Ted. What's his name? Ted, the guy for Heidi High. You know, the squat kind of fat guy with the tash, the teddy boy outfit. And that's Ted Bovis. Ted Bovis for Heidi High. I remember being really stunned as because I was in my teens at the time when Prick Up Your Ears came out. I remember watching that. I think that's the guy for Heidi High, because he takes them to a derelict house, and the guy's saying, "Oh, I'm really sorry for your loss," and he Joe Orton, just played by Gary Oldman, drops his trousers and drops his scants and just goes, "Handle my balls. Handle my balls." And I feel as if that's what Rangers season's all about. You know, you've got all the different things, you've got the quotes, what you're going to think back on, what's the memorable stuff. You don't have time to remember the whole production, because it turns out isn't Paul Shane. And I had a whole thing worked out about that was really, really intense, because I'm in the York Theatre Royal yesterday, and I'm thinking, this is where Stuart Lee did Snowflake, isn't it? This is where Stuart Lee did Snowflake, which I saw in Edinburgh. I saw Stuart Lee on it during the Edinburgh Festival, but he does the Snowflake Tornado, and he does the Snowflake part of that tour. And he records it, the one he records, and it's been on, like, the BBC. It was filmed in the York Theatre Royal, because he slags off the folk in York. I think that might have been the basic Lee recording. He slags off folk in York for being right into their batter. And yesterday my wife's like, "God, there's a smell of batter about here." I said, "That's funny, because Stuart Lee does that. He slags folk for York because he's recording his concert, he's recording his gig at that tour at the Theatre Royal in York." And I said, "Oh, that's the theatre we're going tonight. Is it? Is that?" I said, "Right." And he slags folk for York for smelling a batter. Just get batter in my flask here. And Paul, but he comes out at the start of that tour, and I saw this live, and he comes out and he's wearing a Teddy Boy jacket, Stuart Lee, at the start of that tour, because it's a tribute to another Ted. What's his name? Oh God, Ted Chippingham. Chippington. It was a guy who inspired Chippington, who inspired Stuart Lee to become a stand-up comedian. So he comes out wearing a Teddy Boy jacket, but because Stuart Lee's a totally different build to Ted Chippington, he looks really kind of squat, and he's like, he obviously thinks he looks like Paul Shane, so he comes out and he goes, "Oh, Ted Bovis has let himself go," isn't he? And everybody's laughing. And I thought, but this is the Theatre Royal York, and it's Gary Oldman. And Gary Oldman is the guy who tells Paul Shane, who plays Ted Bovis in Heidi High, to handle my balls. So I got back last night, and I found it on YouTube, and it's no Paul, it's just another wee Scot guy with a tash, an actor who's totally different for Paul Shane. But that's what happens in a season. You've got to kind of pick out your favourite games, pick out your highlights, and Barry has been involved in some serious highlights. Today wasn't a highlight, but he's made sure that in his two Old Firm games in charge, we won at Parkhead, and we didn't get beat today. He hasn't lost either of them, and it's almost like we've been, losing 2 goals to everybody else in Scotland. 3 goals up at Dens Park, and failing to beat. I think it's 5 league games in the trot now. We've gone without a win. So it's almost like he's done this on purpose to say to Celtic, "You can only score 1 goal against us a day. We don't take the lead against them, do you, Ibrox? You must be shite." And Brendan Rodgers has got himself a little bit of a problem if our takeover goes according to plan and we get a wee result against them back at Ibrox here for the first Old Firm game next season. That'll be pretty good. The highlights, the quotable moments of this season. That's how I was going to bring that round. The quotable moments of this season. Barry's been involved in quite a few of them. Fenerbahce, home and away. Athletic Club at Ibrox, and a couple of games against Celtic, in which we've done really well, considering how far behind we are in the league title race, which is probably over now. We probably won't win the league this season. I hate to be the one to break that to you, but Barry's done well, and I'm glad it all worked out for him. And he's obviously not getting a job. He's talking on Fridays if he knows he's not going to get a job. But it doesn't mean to say he's done a bad job, because he's certainly done no worse than Philip Clement. He just did it in a different way. I thought it was like, at first I thought it was weak. At first I thought it was a weak performance. At first I thought it was a weak play, a weak interpretation. It wasn't hitting home with me at all. And I think Gary Oldman directed it. I thought maybe that was a mistake. He shouldn't have done this. He just seemed to be talking through it. He just seemed to be kind of saying it without, no, obviously not without any feeling. But I realised it was an English production. He was doing it in a really English way because Samuel Beckett, an Irish Protestant, wrote it for Patrick McGee, specifically for Patrick McGee, an Irish Catholic actor. And most of the productions I listen to are kind of, it's that it makes you think about. It makes you think about Britain, Ireland, these isles, as Brendan Rodgers would call them. Last night, and is it the pronunciation, the emphasis going on the words? Is it because as Scots? Well, I think the part of Scotland I come from, it was Welsh. It was Brittonic in Ayrshire, and that's different part. I think historically, but it wasn't English wasn't the first language, but then English hadn't actually formed at that point in time as a language. But you think is this stuff that gives nationalists, no Scottish nationalists, Irish nationalists, this gives them the kind of their ideas about the right language to speak and stuff like that is maybe because we're pronouncing English words in a different way. And that's what. So there's an emphasis going on the words, almost halting, but in an attempt to pronounce something clearly, you end up pronouncing it a bit more dramatically. And maybe that's why they kind of Celtic place. That's what it is. They're both Irishmen, Samuel Beckett and Patrick McGee, and I know Patrick McGee's also the name of the guy who blew up the Tory Party conference and killed a few folk, but he's really coming to terms with it now. He's realised that maybe violence and murdering people isn't the answer. If he's really come to terms with it, he'll kill himself, the cunt. But it's, it just makes you. I was thinking, that's what it is. It's a Celtic thing, And I know I'm quite happy being British. I like as far as that kind of stuff goes. You don't want to be too proud of something that you don't have any help. I'm not into nationalism. I'm not thinking that you've no choice in. There's no point in being too proud of that. But I like the whole. I like being British. I like being European. I like the whole gamut, and I definitely, I'm not going to go out of my way to be really proud of these things because it's a bit, it's the last refuge of a-holes. But I was listening to that play last night, I thought, it's really, maybe that's what it is because Gary Oldman, obviously of Irish antecedents and what have you, but he's born in London and he's just doing it. The reason I like the English and the reason, I like being attached to England, not just geographically, but politically, is because I think we need them. We need them to smooth the way, and a lot of stuff that's happened recently with politics down there. All the right wing stuff's got to them down there as well. But it used to be the English kind of could come in and go, right, I just calm it down. We've done a whole thing where it's we've got Anglicanism and all that, the kind of Church of England stuff. It's a bit Catholic-y, but it's also a bit Protestant-y. It's just so everybody can get on. We all just want to get on with our lives where we're pure mads one way or the other. We're kind of Presbyterian doing it. Like there's having minute silences at games down south for the Pope and that. And I'm just, you're watching it going, I couldn't do that. It's really, I don't know why I shouldn't. It's, if people believe that, it's nice, it's respectful, but there just comes a point where you're forced to face up to, just what you are, where you come from, the stuff that you can't really help in life. And I thought last night, is that what it is? The thing that I like about this, and about they don't go over dramatic, they don't work themselves up into a frenzy about stuff. They're kind of cool almost. They help to cool everything, as far as I'm concerned, politically. Maybe that's to the detriment of this play, because Gary Oldman isn't going to go there and be, I am pronouncing English words and making them more dramatic. I like this play for the wrong reasons. Gary Oldman is just speaking it, he's just saying it. He just, because he's Krapp's character is playing these, he's playing these quotes back to himself. He's playing his own recollections. He's playing his diary back to himself, and he's recording them more. But the emphasis that goes on words, it's really poetic. It's really dramatic. For example, the whole spool thing. Every production I watch of Krapp's last tape, it's the bit where he's talking about the spool. The spool. This is Krapp delighting in the language, delighting in a simple word like spool, drawing it out. Whereas Gary Oldman, he was just going to went, spool. That's good, spool. It was really low key. And I'm thinking, is that going to be enough? And it gets to, my tester is always the bit where he first recalls the bit on the punt, with obviously the love of his life, and it never worked out. I think for Beckett it was actually his cousin, his second cousin or something like that. But he's on the punt with the waves are bobbing, and below them is the waves are going up and going down and from side to side, and that's them shagging basically on the boat. But it's a bit where he says, I told her it was useless. There was no use going on. It was hopeless. There was no use going on, and she agreed. And it's every time I hear that, it just kills me. It just absolutely knocks the shit out of me, that line. And I was watching it last night with Gary Oldman, and it didn't. It was just a matter of fact. Like, it was a matter of fact statement. It didn't a really matter of fact way. And I thought, this isn't working. It's not working. But see, at the end, we brought it round at the end. I was getting other bits that, surprise, somebody has a look at it. A really well-known, a really well-worn play decides to put a different emphasis on it. But by the time it got to the end, and it was that bit gets repeated. He listens to it again, and it's because he's thinking to himself, it's all about the pram in the hallway and committing yourself to a life of literature and keeping the women and the love affairs out the way. And then as you realise at the end, you should never deny yourself that is part of life. What an absolute tragedy not to love who you should love just because of what you've chosen to do professionally. And there was the production. He designed the stage. He designed the scenery. He designed the setup there, and obviously you've got the floorboards. He was in an attic as opposed to a basement, as opposed to a room off. This time it was an attic. This time Krapp was sitting in, but the floorboards were all kind of jagged and discontinued at the end of the season. I thought, it's the floorboards of the attic. They've obviously got to come to it's a precision art stage. They can't extend it into the audience, and they've obviously got to be. They just finished them off kind of artily. But what it was a whole bit about, when we were on the punt, everything was still, but then beneath us everything moved. And I always just thought with that line about but he's just said about everything moved, the waves were moving, so we're bobbing up and down and from side to side, so things got a bit raunchy. But I said, no, it doesn't matter how still. He's trying not to have any love affairs. He's trying to stay still in life. But beneath, the kind of preternatural power of love, even procreation, is making sure you have to. That's moving all the time. And if you can manage to fight against it, it's an absolute tragedy. It's almost perverse. You should be going along with it. You should be engaging in love and acts of love and what have you. So, and I saw that way the floor of the stage was finished off. It was letting you see you just crack the surface, and below it there's a power, there's a life force that you just can't do anything about. In Rangers this season, everything in the league this season, nothing's changed today. Everything stays still. We can't go any lower than second or any higher. Celtic aren't going to come down. They're going to be stuck in first. But to say that everything's staying still, to say that below us we've got this takeover coming in, we're going to have more money coming in. Maybe Nico Raskin's going to go for £40 million. Maybe they're going to build the team round about him. Maybe they're going to build the team round Igaman. Who knows? We're getting a new manager in. But there's a definite feeling today that if Celtic think things are going to stay the way they are, no, because there is big, preternatural, massive moves, earthquakes happening under the surface, and even this Rangers team, without the massive investment that it needs, is managing to rock things ever so gently in terms of the power structure of the last 3 years in Scottish domestic football. And also Gary Oldman, of course, he's playing Krapp because Krapp's 69 years old, and we've been playing Krapp all season. That's an obvious one. Gary Oldman's 67, and he's in slow horses, and slow horses get put down, and there's going to be a few Rangers players getting put out to pasture at best in the summertime. It's just a brutally long, rambling, painful pod, folks, because I'm so exhausted. I'm just trying to get everything in there I possibly can to make it anyway entertaining. I've just made it really, really long and really, really painful. A bit like so much this domestic season has been, but that was tidy today. That'll do for me, And what we got, 3 games, 2 of them at home. I promise all pods from now on are going to be less than half an hour, and we'll get this season sorted out. And we'll look forward to the new season. We'll get this season done and dusted. We'll look forward to the new season with we're big money and we're new owners, and there'll be a whole lot of worries that brings in by itself. But it will certainly make sure, as always, there's plenty happening. And Rangers Again, that's 4 games now unbeaten over 90 minutes against Celtic. So let's leave it at that. Cheers, folks.